Welcome to my channel, good people. Today we are talking about Sigma 16 to 300mm 3.5 to 6.7 DC OS optical stabilization 67mm thread, filter thread. So it's a very good thread, and if you have those kind of filters already, you can use them here. And it's a very popular filter thread because if you have, for example, Tamron lenses, they usually use 67mm. Now the weight of this lens is pretty nice. It's not too light, not too heavy. You can feel it's a substantial, nice, well-built glass. But of course not too heavy. Everything works pretty fine. From 16 to 300 you can see it. There is a substantial amount of extension here, but everything works fine. This like focus ring works smooth. You have lock to prevent it from accidentally like doing that, but it doesn't anyways. But there is this thing, and you have optical stabilization, which is very important. You have like this weather sealing here on the back, and everything works pretty fine as you would expect from Sigma lens. Now let's talk about the most important things like sharpness. So in case of sharpness, between 16 and 35, the situation is really good. In the center of the frame you have this lens is sharp. In the corners a little less, but just a tad less. There is some amount of chromatic aberration there, some purple fringing, but it's nothing dramatic. And if you stop it down a little bit, it goes away, but never goes away 100%, unfortunately. At 50, things get a little softer. In the center of the frame, not that much as in the corners, and you can stop it down a little bit, but still the corners will remain a little soft. So something to keep in mind. The worst part of this lens is 150mm, where things are pretty soft, so you will have to use some image sharpening in post-production, which normally you would anyways, but it's something important that if you are looking for a perfect optical quality, this lens might not be for you. However, I have to state one thing, right now, that it's a lot of fun. It's a fun lens. I love this lens, but there are some optical flaws because it's a super zoom lens. At 300, things are a little soft, but it's pretty even. And if you're thinking about close-ups, architectural close-ups are very good, no problem at all. But if you want to do some smaller objects, I would recommend going somewhere like 24mm and just going closer to the object, stopping it down to maybe 5.6, and you're getting decent optical quality here. Let's talk about distortion. Distortion at distortion is a fun stuff. At 16mm, distortion is of course somehow barrel type, and up to 35 it stays like that, and above 35 it becomes a pincushion distortion, but nothing dramatic. At 16, I forget to mention, there's some kind of mustache effect, which is a little bit harder to correct in post, but still, again, nothing spectacular there. Then at 70 to 100, the distortion goes away and the lens becomes pretty straight. However, like through all the range, you can see quite a lot of vignetting. However, the good news is that vignetting is pretty even, and that's very important because in some older lenses I've seen like vignetting being very rough towards the end and towards the corner, and like it was just almost impossible to remove it in post-production. So there was a lot of working if you wanted to get rid of it totally, a lot of post, but now you can just click and it's gone, so no problem to me. However, as you can see, both in case of sharpness and in case of distortion and in case of corners, there's some navigation here. You have to know this lens if you're expecting some, good optical quality to get it actually. Now, autofocus is a good news because autofocus is very silent, very accurate, very fast. I tested this lens on my trusted Fujifilm, which is not the best. It would work even better on Sony system, obviously, but being honest, like it's really quiet, it's really nice, and no complaints here. Sigma has been releasing some really good lenses recently, and autofocus is almost always on spot and completely quiet. Now, talking about autofocus, let's talk about focus breathing. Like on manual focus, if you want to do some videography on this lens, very good news, focus breathing is almost unnoticeable. So this is actually a very good news for mainly video makers. Optical stabilization is something very important here. Not very important, but something quite important, specifically if you don't have in-body image stabilization, which in case of Fujifilm is not the case because it does have in-body image stabilization, but combined with this OS, as you can see me, going through all the range of the focal length here at 300 is pretty stable. So I tested it in a couple scenarios, and you can, by the way, see how insane the range of this lens is. It's like, wow. So again, like, this is actually a good news. When it comes to working against harsh light, it's very well controlled. I would expect something much worse from this lens, but actually it performs very well. Stars in the night are beautiful, like very even, or not even in the night, but also during the day when when the sun touches some kind of like edge of some building, for example, you can achieve this star effect, and it's actually very beautiful, very clean, very nice. And talking about cleanliness, let's talk about bokeh, like in portrait scenarios, because you would like to use this 100 to 180 maybe for portraits. Then the bokeh becomes really nice, actually much nicer than I expected. Of course, it's not the level of some kind of 50mm 1.4 prime lens, don't expect that, but it gives you a little bit of like this separation of model from the background. The bokeh is pretty clean, like for this kind of lens, as you can see for yourself. Of course, there are flows to it, but that's something you would probably expect from thing like that. And in the night, talking about the lights, hitting this lens, there's no smudging. I wouldn't say no smudging, but very little smudging. So this kind of things, actually, when it comes to work against the light, bokeh, smudging, loca, are pretty nicely controlled. Not talking about the corners, where in corners you get this purple fringing, as I stated before. I have visited Morocco, northern Morocco, with this lens, and I've been testing it for a week, and this was my favorite lens. I had like a Nikon Z50, sorry, Z50, not ZV, Sony, right? I had Nikon Z50 Mark II for tests in Morocco. I also had Viltrox 50mm 2.0 Air, and this thing was my favorite thing, despite all its flaws, despite all the optical problems you can find here. But you can see on the samples right now that I enjoyed working with this lens, because like countries like Morocco are chaotic, are full of life, and I like it. I really do. So it's this Arabic world. People sell stuff. Some people jump to the water. Some people are on the boat. Some people are on the motorcycles, or these little scooters that are like welded all over. It's like, if you haven't been there, you just gotta go. Morocco is beautiful, it's safe, it's a fantastic place to visit, a lot of fantastic people to meet. So this kind of lens, depending on your mood, if you want to do something more stealthy, 300, like have a nice shot of something from afar, or you're gonna go like all out then with 60mm, this lens is a lot of fun. And in most cases, when I look at zoom lenses, if something starts with equivalent of 28 for full frame, I say nah, that won't be enough for me. I will need something else, because I like wide angles. So if the lens starts with 16, which is 24 on full frame, and ends at 300, which is 450 on full frame, this is something for me. Not necessarily this 450, because this is a little bit of an overkill to me, but 16. I honestly prefer if Sigma would do something like 15 to, let's say, 150. That would be completely enough for me, but maybe in the future they'll do something like that. However, coming back to what we have right now, this lens I actually can recommend easily to people that are not too picky about the optics and are okay to do some sharpening and post-production in Lightroom, but they want a fun lens, a lens that is the only lens that take with them on a travel. This lens is this lens. And obviously, having said that, I love it, but I would love to see version number 2 with a little bit more sharpness to it. That's my only real complaint here. The other things can be like, but sharpness, a little bit more of sharpness, if Sigma can come up with second version, like, I don't know, 1 year or 2 years from now, would be nice. But having said that, good price, good build quality, great fun. So if you're thinking of, reviving your passion for photography, and you happen to have Fuji or L mount or, Sony E mount, APS-C, remember about that crop factor, then I do recommend this Sigma. It's a lovely tool, it's a lovely lens that I really fall in love with. and taking it to some places like Morocco or anywhere like you feel like you want to, you know, enjoy this photography trip is a beautiful experience. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thumbs up, subscribe. Don't forget to check affiliate links in the description below. I have some good stuff, some good recommendations for you there, and I see you in the next recording. Cheers.